Good evening and welcome again to a Dreamers Paranormal Journal with Linda and Jason.
Welcome again to a Dreamers
And we are here in our 9th installment. Today we're going to be discussing children with black eyes. Not the black eye where you get punched, but the actual literal black eyes. We also will be discussing being scratched in the middle of the night by possible paranormal activity that comes into your house. So a lot of tonight's show will be about paranormal. So those of you who are paranormal fans, hope you're tuned in. I hope we can get some feedback from where we're going, and we're looking forward to getting our show started off tonight. So go ahead, Miss Linda.
All right, so this is our 9th show. It's a lot. It hasn't seen that many, I guess. But here we go. So here we are live right now on a Dreamers Paranormal Journal on North Pole Radio. And if you guys, if anyone out there listening wants to call in, just let me know, or just email us or message us and just let us know, and we'll go ahead and try to put you here on air and talk about anything you want to talk about, paranormal, not paranormal, just any issues you might want to go over. Okay. And then we'll talk about the black-eyed children after I share this post. Okay, so let's talk about some black-eyed children. So apparently, let me go back and actually explain to you what they are. These are children that will appear as normal from far away, but their eyes will look like they won't have any eyes. Basically, they'll look plucked out or like blurred. You know, they won't. They'll look normal from far away, but they won't look normal close up. Mm-hmm. So basically, I've been noticing a lot of these black-eyed children visitations on the internet a lot. That's why I'm doing this today. Whether or not the stories of midnight encounters with the mysterious black-eyed children have any truth, honestly, I can't say yes or no, because I've never actually seen them. I've only seen like footage, or whatever you see online is whatever I see. But of course, you know, the tales keep popping up with, you know, on Facebook and all that stuff. So I figured let's try to figure out who they are and where they come from. So the encounters always occur in the same way. Someone home alone in the middle of the night hears a knock at the door. When they peek through the window, there's a child there, normally in a pair, like 2 or 3, if not more. They're never alone. There's always a few. And as the resident as the person cautiously opens the door to see what might be wrong, a familiar feeling of dread washes over them, like the hair on the back of your neck will stand up. It'll be creepy, and at that point, just close the door. You know, don't go any further than that. But of course, curiosity takes over, so you open the damn door. And there's these strange children beg to be let inside, but something isn't right. There's always something off about these kids. As the lonely resident looks closer, they see these children's eyes are black as an oil slick. So, or like I said, they're sunken in holes that there's nothing there. An unnerving detail that causes them to slam the door and deny them their pleas for entrance. Some of them call the police and clutch to a weapon. Of course, we all have weapons, a knife or a bat or a broom. But never ever do they let the black-eyed children inside. Until recently, because, people are so freaking smart. So, the following are kind of like eyewitness accounts from a woman who emailed us to say that she made the mistake of letting the black-eyed kids inside her home. And now she claims is paying the ultimate price. Her story comes as a warning to those willing to open their door more than a crack. So I've gotten this out, edited it, and just tried to alter it a little bit to make it shorter. So here we go. She says the email subject is, I let the black-eyed children inside my house. And then she starts by saying that I know how hard this all will be to believe, but now things have turned for the worst. I started looking for stories similar to mine and found weak and weird. I feel like I should share this story with someone or your website. It seems like the right place. I made the mistake of letting the black-eyed kids inside, and now I'm worried that I might die because of it. I hope this will be a warning to everyone who is ever in the position to make the same mistake I did. I live just outside of Vermont. It's a tight-knit community where everyone knows one another and people don't knock on other people's doors at night. There has never been any need to. So a little over a year ago, she woke up because she heard a loud noise at the front door, a couple banging. At the time, her husband lived in a small home on the dirt road just off the rural route of the town. It was the middle of a snowstorm, and nearby hills get very slippery in the snow, so I thought that someone might have been in a car accident and broke down, because she says it's happened before. When she looked outside the window, she could see that out motion spotlight was on. She said she could see that there were footprints in the snow that had come from our road and onto our driveway, but there was no car anywhere. The snow was still covered the road, and no one had driven on it for at least a couple hours. Our front door was obscured from the window, but I could see that someone was standing there. I wasn't sure what to think, so I woke up my husband just to feel a little safer. While I was telling him what was going on, the banging on the door started again. My husband went to answer it while I stood in the hallway. And then she has a picture of the footprints in the snow, from what she saw. When he opened the door, there were two children standing in the snow looking toward the ground. They were a boy and a girl and could not have been more than 8 years old. They were dressed strangely and had odd haircuts. Most likely they're going to look like back in maybe 20s, late 20s, 30s, even later than that, possibly 1800s dress. That's how these kids look. I'll continue. The girl's hair was very long and straight, and the boy had a dated haircut that looked almost like a bowl cut. They weren't dressed for the winter, and my first thought was that they must have been Mennonite children, but as far as I know, there was never a large community of Mennonites near us. Thinking back on it, I know that a normal My normal reaction to seeing children in the snow would have been to rush to their sides and bundle them up with some blankets, hot cocoa, but that's not how I felt. The children were unnerving. They would not make eye contact, and when my husband asked them if everything was okay, they act as if they asked if they could come in. My husband looked at me what he didn't know what to do, and I asked the kids where were their parents. The kids answered they'll be here soon. It was around 2 in the morning at this point, so the only reasonable thought in my head was that there must have been an accident or these kids got lost. As much as my instincts told me not to bring them in the house, I did anyway. I went into the kitchen to make them some hot cocoa while my husband took them into the living room. While I was fixing the kettle, I could hear my husband talking to the kids. He was asking if they were okay, where they came from, how far they walked, if their parents where their parents' car was broken down, things like that, but they always answered with, "Our parents will be here soon." They spoke in a sing-songy voice. I guess you can kind of compare that to something we hear from The Shining when they were talking to those little girls.
They always sing
Yeah.
nursery rhymes. That's what I'm reading about them right now.
They aren't afraid. We're not afraid to be in a stranger's home at all. I started noticing that our cats, they had 4, were all hiding except one, who was in the kitchen with me. Normally our cats are very curious and friendly, and we have to be careful that they don't run out the door when we leave. This time, none of them even tried to see who was there, which I thought was very strange. All the hair on the cat's neck was standing up, and his tail was puffed up while he was looking into the living room. When I bent down to pet him and see what was wrong, he hissed and started growling and backed up, and he hadn't hid himself under the kitchen island. I have never seen him do that before. When I walked back into the living room, the kids were sitting on the couch as still as can be, but my husband was holding his head in his hands. I asked him what was wrong. He just said that he felt very dizzy all of a sudden, but he was fine. I turned back to the children to give them their cocoa, but when they looked at me, I gasped. It took everything inside of me not to drop the mugs and run away. When they looked at me with their eyes, they were completely black. They had no whites, just giant black pupils. When they saw that I was scared, they stood up and asked if they could use the bathroom. I tried to compose myself as much as I could, showed them down the hall. They went into the bathroom together, and I hurried back to my husband to ask if he had seen their eyes. He said he had seen them too, and said that he looked like his brother's badly bruised eyes after a car accident. They were in the middle of talking about whose children they could be when my husband's nose started to bleed. He'd never had nosebleeds as long as she'd known him. She said, I knew inside myself that this had something to do with the kids in the bathroom. I started to cry while I ran to get my husband some tissues. When the power went out, well, that's awesome. I heard my husband yell my name from the living room, and as I started to walk back through the hallway, I stopped dead in my tracks. The 2 children were standing in the hallway. They weren't moving, and I have never been so scared in my whole life. They just stood there in the dark. After what felt like forever, the boy said, Our parents are here. And they walked to the door and opened it and walked out, leaving it wide open. My husband jumped up to close it and almost fell over, We looked out the window and saw two men standing by a black car idling at the end of our driveway. The men looked like they were wearing black colored suits and were very tall, at least 6 feet. When my husband waved at them, they stared at us, got into the car, and drove off. Our power came back on, and about half an hour later, but nothing was the same after that. Over the next 3 months, our cats went missing, and we could only assume that they ran away somewhere and can never come back. But the worst thing was coming home to find Pigeon in a puddle of blood. Was her cat that saw the kids. In the puddle of blood in the living room floor. He looked like he had been vomiting blood. The vet told us that he had some kind of hemorrhage. After my husband's nosebleeds became regular occurrence, we went to the doctor. He didn't know what to make of it other than a dry nasal passage, but my husband was diagnosed with an aggressive skin cancer after that. When the doctor asked us if he used some tanning beds, we both thought he was joking, but apparently this kind of melanoma was linked to overuse of indoor tanning. The doctor thinks he will recover, but don't understand how it got so bad quickly. My husband has never worked in an outdoor job and spends relatively little time in the sun. Since we let the black-eyed kids inside our homes, she's also suffered from dizzy spells, nosebleeds, and on a regular basis. Also, other issues which she said she won't mention, but to trust her that when she says she is in the worst condition of her life, and no one can do anything about it. She says that all of this because she let in the black-eyed children into her home. She's told everyone she could about the strange kids that showed up that night, but no one else saw them. Some laugh at how scared they were of the Mennonite kids, but they know what they saw, and they wish they had never opened the door. She says to feel free to publish this as a warning to others about the black-eyed kids. Her advice would be to lock your doors, call the police, and wait for morning. Don't make the same mistake she did. Also, it's the most frightening report of black-eyed kids she's personally read, and the first one I'm aware of that covers what happens to those unfortunate souls who let them in. Still, the story leaves us with more questions than answers. Who were the tall men that came to pick them up?
Well, after reading a little bit about them right now, it looks like these kids, and I think you covered part of that already, but these kids that come to the door are kids that are already dead. From the paranormal, from the investigations that have been done, these kids are already dead, and they're tormenting people because of the torment that they have been through, is what it looks like. And the horrificness of how they died caused potential dark energy in there, which is what is winding up hurting the people that they encounter.
Right.
So they're coming in and they're knocking on their door, and because of the dark energy and honestly, we got to look at it from some people die horrifically, and these children are abused so terrible that it causes. It causes, you have to look at the people that do these crimes. There's got to be something that drove them. Honestly, a lot of it they chalk it away to mental illness.
Yeah.
But in the end, you have some kind of evil in you to hurt these kids.
Yeah.
Hurt children like that. And in the end, I mean, a lot of what they're coming up with, and to me, makes sense. I mean, you're going to be in such a horrific set of circumstances.
Yeah.
It's going to create some dark energy that comes from that. I'm not saying that's what caused it, but if you think about it, these kids are upset, when they're coming there. So they haven't settled what's happened to them. They haven't resolved and been able to move past it, to cross over. So they're taking that dark energy that ended their tragic existence to new levels by plaguing the people that they encounter.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I guess the moral of the story is, I mean, when these kids come in, what do you do? I mean, obviously not answer the door. I mean, that's pretty much all you really can do. Don't answer the door to them. If I mean, honestly, if it's out of the ordinary, you got to look at what's safe for you and what's safe for your family at that point. I mean, it's sad because you almost feel for these kids that are doing this, but we have to look at what is the we have to look out for you're not going to be able to help somebody if you can't help yourself. I mean, that's the truth. That's how any survival situation that you come into, that's where it looks at. But hopefully, the more will be investigated into this, and these kids will, something will, figure out how to help these people go through, get through it.
Yeah, they're trying to link them to extraterrestrial encounters type of account, like an actual contact. Instead of being lifted, you're being in your home.
Well, it kind of goes back to what we talked about last week about demons. And I mean, they exist. I mean, there's no getting around that. Yeah. I mean, there's enough evidence that they do, and who knows what they see. They may feel sorry for these kids and feel a need to help them get their vengeance, from that. And people, that they're not going to know how to handle what comes through them. I mean, it's one of those things you got to be on guard, but you got to educate yourself about it too, and don't let paranoia about paranormal paranoia get the best of you, because as long as you keep your head, things, you will be okay. Just don't, look at it. I mean, what is you allow these kids in. I mean, obviously you're going to want to look to see if these kids are a danger to you. I mean, what if it is a real kid? You can't, oh no, it's a kid at my door, I can't open it. Yeah. You're going to have to assess it by looking at it and making sure. I mean, that's what you got to do with anything in life anyway. You're going to make sure it is okay for you to help what that situation is, because you're not going to help nobody if you're hurt at the same time. So, yeah. If a 2-year-old comes to your door, I mean, you got to kind of weigh the risks. I mean, honestly, you got your family to protect. That's the bottom line.
Yeah, of course, if the kid has eyes, I mean, shit.
Yeah, you got to look and see if they have eyes. But maybe, from what I was reading, some of these kids, some of the Becks is what they call them in here, the black-eyed kids. The Becks would come to the door with hoods, so you couldn't see their eyes. So they were disguised. Somebody comes to my door late at night with hoods on there, I'm going to be a little more suspicious of that. But some of them had hoods on. Some of them, I mean, most of them had. Some of those kids have had. Most of them have the early age. The clothing that they're wearing. I mean, yeah, you're gonna know what to look for. But if they come with hoods, I mean, you're gonna be a little more suspicious, hopefully.
Yeah, I've had that before. Yeah, a hooded person. Someone open the door.
Yeah, don't open the door.
But this guy was tall, though. This guy was like pretty tall.
Yeah, so you got to be. Yeah, I mean, a lot of it is common sense. You're gonna have to look at it as what's right and what's. I mean, yeah, but you've got a 2-year-old kid out there in the cold. Look at them and see that, just be careful. I mean, that's the way it is.
Yeah, because I already see a 2-year-old kid, I'd be like, get your butt in here.
I mean, that's her first reaction, but that's the trap that you get into too. And it's hard. It's one of the things when I took first aid, my teacher taught me something that was very important. Before you go to help somebody else, make sure you're not going to get hurt in the process. So if you see someone near an electrical line and they're by that, you're gonna want to make sure that electrical line is not gonna electrocute you before you go and try to help somebody else. There's a rule. It's a survival technique that helps people do well. It goes from that. So just, don't just, you're a 2-year-old. You might be we're not saying turn away every kid that comes to your door, but be cautious. There's always. It's kind of like the Trojan horse.
Yeah.
Those are the things you got to look at, or the which way books. Which way am I going to go? Am I going to go this way, or am I going to go that? Think of what makes the most sense. Okay, how often are you going to have a 2-year-old coming to your door? Not very often. But yeah, maybe there was something that happened. This lady looks like she was trying to protect some kids that she thought got in an accident.
Yeah.
So look around. Before you open the door, look around. Look at your surroundings. Look at what it is before you make that. So, and anyway, looks like we're going to move on to our next topic. Before we do that, just to let you know, you're listening to a Dreamer's Paranormal Journal on Wolf Paw Radio with Linda and Jason. 9th show tonight. We're hoping we hear from you. We haven't had anybody chime in. So we hope to have somebody chime in. This is fun. This is what keeps us going. Yeah.
We even have an argument. I'm up for arguments too. Okay, just let you know that I'm up for arguments. Okay. So the other topic was waking up with scratches on your body. I know people don't talk about it, but I guess I wanted to bring it up because it did come up again on social media. And I thought, well, this happened to me, but nobody ever talks about them because, sometimes you think about, you must have scratched your back on your own or there must have been something in your bed, nothing sexual, okay? But there must have been something that, sometimes that tag in the back and your clothing could be sharp enough to scratch your back at any point. And Jason's being a pervert about this.
Not being a pervert. Just saying that's what most people are going to think. When you got scratches on your back, that's where it comes from.
Oh, my God.
Well, it is.
I know, but when you're like 10 years old, that stuff's not good.
Well, we didn't specify what we were looking at here.
Right.
Okay.
Okay, so the unexplainable phenomenon that the scratches is appearing on human flesh. What does it mean? Why is it happening? Who else is it happening to? Is it crazy or is it real? And what can you do to stop it? Well, to explain it, some research shows that these scratches usually come in threes and appear on the back, arms, legs, or face. Along with scratches, people also experience mysterious bite marks or bruising. These seem to appear at times in our lives when temptation is near or when facing a big decision. These scratches have a distinct meaning: destruction or destroy. Rather than going on and on, I'm going to share the testimony from others who have been affected by strange scratches. You'll notice the phenomenon doesn't restrict itself to one country, but rather it has afflicted many around the world. You're not crazy, nor are you alone. Several months ago, a poll was administered about the unexplained scratches, and the response was fascinating. The question was, have you ever experienced unexplained scratches, bruises, or bite marks? 97% said yes, 3% said no. These were results out of 1,047 people who voted. And this is just the beginning of thousands of victims have turned into the internet searching for answers about the unexplained scratches appearing on their body. Through the sites have tried to help, they have fallen short to tell the truth. Personal stories about the unexplained scratches. These stories are real comments left by readers and listeners who have experienced the scratches and other mysterious events. First anonymous occurrence. They said they found the site via search on Paranormal Scratches. They said that I'm a victim of this phenomenon. I can't say a shit
Phenomena.
today. I can't say anything. I couldn't even say a person's name today. That's how bad it was. This has been happening to me for at least 6 years. At first, I thought it was just something odd or maybe one of my cats scratched me. Probably it. And I didn't remember. I actually watched them from one night and witnessed the event itself. They arise like welts turned into blood on her body. After 3 days, they completely disappeared. I've had them in places I can't reach with rulers or even self-inflicted. I've had them on my face, neck, arms, legs, and back. Over the years, I've almost gotten used to them. I was told that it might be a ghost in my house, but when I moved, it kept happening. Also, other people have been close to me have been afflicted as well. I know this is a bizarre and doesn't fit the norm, so here in the search of answers, I've been advised by someone who tried to help me that it may be in fact my own psychic doing. And she goes on. We all have personal spiritual energy, and there's a lot about the human mind we are only starting to understand. It's been suggested that I have certain powers or gifts that make this happen. This power comes at a price, though. It's painful and has affected others. I know. The bloody scratches, marks, eventually heal and disappear, but nonetheless, it's scary. I'm not saying that I'm some kind of warlock or anything. The reality is, I don't know what's going on or how to deal with it. I could use some help, so I've chosen the grassroots method and decided to find others like me. The person I'm currently talking to has been very helpful, but she is only one source of information. I would like to hear from others. Thanks. Okay. Honestly, it could be a variety of things. Yeah, it could be your own mind. It could be your own mind inflicting its own self wounds, which is probably possible. But I don't know.
Well, I mean, okay. I mean, you always hear the power of self. You're kind of play on your own psyche. When it comes to stress, when it comes to things that plague your mind when you sleep. Um, a lot of that, your mind goes into its own little warp field in a way. I mean, I don't. I mean, I guess that's kind of a weird analogy. Not everybody's going to be a Star Trek fan, but in the end, your brain when you go into REM sleep, your mind kind of drifts, and that's when you dream, and it opens up. I mean, basically the things that are on your mind, that are the things that you fear, come through in your dreams a lot. I mean, honestly, we all, like, if we're thinking about something very seriously, we tend to dream of something that terrible is going to happen. Then that thing has a way of coming about it. Mm-hmm. And like they say, it's a mind over matter type of a thing, where you make things happen that you think are going to, you manifest those things.
It's basically your own demon.
Yeah, you're setting yourself up for that. I'm not saying this is what's going on here, but you could be inflicting those scratches on yourself without even realizing. When you're asleep, who knows what's going down. So that, unless you got somebody watching you on a sleep study type of a thing, you're not gonna know. So that's the truth. So I mean, yeah, it could be a demon. It could be something that you've channeled and you didn't even realize you did channel, and they're coming in and scratching you while you're sleeping. And then, yeah, a lot of people say it sounds crazy, but in the end, it's we do not understand every parallel of our universe or our dimension that we walk in. There's things that we still can't explain, and a lot again. One of the things me and Linda both love about the show is that we get to open our minds up to what possibilities are, what possibilities that there can be, and truthfulness, these scratches that you're getting at night could be maybe something in your bed you didn't see. I mean, you can explain it away all you want, and then maybe you can't. Yeah. And when you can't, that's when it's kind of like Sir Arthur Conan Doyle's thing with Sherlock Holmes says. Everything, to find the truth, you have to look at everything that's possible. Then if nothing, if none of that makes sense, then whatever is left is what I'm not even saying the quote right, but the truth is, whatever is impossible is what it is at that point. And that was a Sherlock Holmes saying, and it's true. You have to look at what the truth is. I'm going to look that quote up because it's pretty cool. But in the end, we have to look at, okay, you know what? I can't explain it by the normal stuff that we think it is. What else can it be? And you have to open your mind to that. So if you are getting scratches in your sleep, and you're not knowing what it is, you may want to think about what your mind is dwelling on. We may need to, a lot of religious groups will say, okay, you need to pray before you go to sleep to make this to stop happening. I'm not going to say that that's right or that's wrong. If that helps you and it makes you feel at ease and makes you feel more secure and it stops it, then, by all means. I mean, I will never, again, and this goes from my own upbringing, is that, it came from, that you cannot say any, and again, I was very much, I was raised as a Jehovah's Witness growing up. And so a lot of stuff that I believe now came from the over fundamentalism that came from that religion. And I'm again, I don't want to offend any Jehovah's Witnesses that may be out there if you are listening out there. But in the end, I can't say, I don't feel it's fair to say that any one religion is correct in how they view in that, because every religion is an interpretation of what they believe is what is in the Bible, or where it came from, or what they believe God said. And it causes people to make interesting choices. So in the end, you have to make up your mind, okay, if this is what's going to make you feel better and you feel at ease, then by all means do it. But also don't let fundamentalism close your eyes as to what's going on. You could have somebody who's trying to tell you something, and the only way they know how to get across is by making, it's kind of like me and my wife. When it comes down to it, this is a good example. Sometimes my wife doesn't feel I understand things unless she has to be very pointed about it. And I'm saying that in a very polite form. Sometimes she feels like she needs to make her point across for me to understand where she's coming from. And I'm not going to say she's wrong. She's absolutely right about that. Sometimes I don't see some things, and I need to kind of be smacked in the face with it in order to see it. Yeah. And that's not good, but at the same time, if she didn't do that for me, I wouldn't see it. And that's one thing I appreciate from my wife. Not that she slaps me. I'm not saying that that's what's going on.
I don't beat him hard.
but going back to where being, I'm kind of, I don't want to go off track. The reason why I'm saying that, what if you're getting scratched because there's something someone's trying to tell you, and the only way they know how to get across to you is by doing that. So, okay, what's going on? What's going on in your mind? Maybe you're thinking about a loved one you lost. Maybe that's what's coming on, and this person is trying to reach out to you. It happens. I'll tell you, I've experienced it myself. You have people that you lose in life before their time,
Yeah.
And they're on your mind. They're on your mind so hard sometimes that you want answers as to why this had to happen, and you have to justify it. And that person may be trying to tell you, hey, move on. It's time to move on. I need to move. I won't feel good unless you move on. This is just an example. This isn't necessarily saying this is why it's happening. But think about it. Why is this happening all of a sudden? What's gone on lately that's made it happen? In the end, that's where it takes you. And when you open your mind to it, you'd be surprised what can come through.
I don't know if we want to go through that.
And we could do that.
Or do you want to leave it for next?
Yeah, well, I mean, we could start talking about it now and then.
Or just do the short one.
Going through it for next week. But the last part of what we want to discuss this evening is how we can communicate better. And that's sure something everybody goes through from time to time when they feel like they're not getting across, their points that they need to make. So what about, let's talk about communication, what it is and why it's important. I mean, literally, we all communicate one way or the other every day about something. We have to. We're communicating right now by talking to our radio show here. Through our radio show here, we're making a communication. How do we do it? How do we become effective at it? I guess that's the question.
Right here it says find the right time, but honestly, when you need to say something, there's really never a right time, because if you need to say it, you need to say it. Because a lot of people, like myself, we like to keep things bottled up for a long period of time. And I mean, there's nothing really totally wrong with that, but sometimes it causes like a buildup. And then eventually that buildup will explode. And when it explodes, chaos comes forth.
It's hard. It causes hurt feelings, and you have to know. I don't know. I had somebody, one of Linda's friends, had said that men and women do communicate way differently. I mean, that's the truth. We are different individuals. We're different animals, I guess, when it comes down to it. We all see things in different ways. And sometimes you have to be willing to open your mind to things that maybe you don't necessarily agree with in order to come to a common ground when it comes to it. My wife and I are always working on this. I mean, it's not something that I mean, it's always a work in progress, and it always will be. I mean, honestly, marriage is a work in progress. It always is. Any relationship that you have is a work in progress. What kind of work you do depends on how good of a relationship you really want to have. And if you don't communicate and don't tell, you got to be open to what the other person has to say. And that goes for everybody. Everybody's got to be willing to do that and willing to hear. And sometimes it's easy to come across, and sometimes you have to be very pointed with the way you go about it. And it's not an exact science. There is no exact science, because you know what? We all have emotions. We all have feelings, and we all get angry with where it goes. So sometimes you have to look at it as, okay, am I going to carry, when communication turns into an argument, you have to kind of determine, okay, is this what's more important here? Understanding or continuing the argument? Yeah. And sometimes maybe you have to kind of just walk away from it and say, you know what, we're getting nowhere by doing this. Let's not fight about it. Let's think about what's upsetting us and then come back to it later. And it's funny, because my wife and I actually do this a lot. I mean, literally, we can both get really, really upset, and we both, get irritated, and the argument happens, and then later on, we discuss it as to what's upsetting us or how we went about it, and we can work through it. We both do that. For her, for me, sometimes I just need to let her vent what's stressing her, and this is tough. There's no exact science to this, but you do have power over how you react to it. All of us do. And that's the important part of it. How you react to what is being said, even if you don't agree with what it is. Sometimes you're going to agree, and sometimes you're not. And sometimes you have to listen to see why it's coming across that way. Even though you may not be intending to try to make that happen, you may be making it happen and you don't realize it. And that's hard. And no one wants to admit they're wrong. Whoever wants to admit that they're wrong, it doesn't happen. But sometimes.
Oh no, I know I'm wrong. I just gotta tell you what I feel.
Well, no, and it's not that. I'm just saying, no one wants to admit they're wrong. No one wants to admit that they messed up. And when it comes to, all of us have egos. When it comes to that, we all have things that we take personally. When it comes to what we do, and sometimes you have to kind of let go of that ego in order to end that issue at that point. And Linda is very straight and to the point a lot of the time. It's one of the things I love about her is I know I can depend on honesty, even if it is harsh. And she gets the same thing back from me sometimes. I'll be very straight and to the point. But again, it comes to the point you have to be conscious of what you're saying and what you're doing. It's because we don't want to hurt nobody. That's not our goal in life. Isn't to hurt each other. Our goal in life is to work through things, and it's not easy. Sometimes we make decisions that impact other people, and we don't realize how bad it impacts it until it's too late to see it. And sometimes, with all good intentions of what you're trying to do, you do something and you still mess up. So in the end, you got to realize you have to look at what is more important, being right or coming to a common ground. And that's the truth. That's the end of it. That's what ends arguments, is that you got to realize you love that person. And if that person is feeling that bad, regardless of if you're right or what you intended to try to do or what, doesn't matter. What matters is you're able to help that person see that you're going to do everything you can to make it right for them. So, we all have loved ones. We all, even if we're not in relationships, we have relationships with people around us that we impact. And, some of it, you're going to go in deep. It depends on how much that relationship means to you. Depends on how important that relationship is. Whether it's a good friend, whether it's an acquaintance at work, whether it's your spouse, whatever it is, you have a relationship. And so how you handle that relationship and how good you want that relationship to be is going to be what effort you put into it.
And it's safe to talk face to face, but you know what? In this day and age, it's freaking hard because we're all working. We sometimes don't have time, and you have to communicate the only way you probably can. I know through messaging and stuff, you get a lot of miscommunications, but then you can always go in there and explain it out loud or explain, but I don't know, it's kind of like basically the way I see it is if there's something wrong and you feel it, you've got to let it out right then and there. It's because if you wait until like later in the day, you're going to forget, and then you're going to remember again. You're like, oh crap, I forgot. And then it dwindles off, and then the situation never gets addressed. And then it eventually comes back to bite whoever in the butt, and continues from there. Okay, so how to communicate if you are angry. Stop, think, talk, and listen. Alright, well, since I am a girl, and I will tell you this because, F it, I'm going to use this because, yes, I am a girl, and you know what? Sometimes men do it too. We don't stop, we don't think, and we won't listen until the other persons get the whole thing out. And then we tell our side, the whole thing out. Doesn't say we're not listening, it's just we need to get the whole thing out before the interruption starts. But, I mean, it's just one of those things. Something's bothering you, you gotta say it. Just say it. Just blurt it out. If it's in your head, just blurt it out. It may come out wrong, but it still comes out. And then you can interpret it afterwards. So after that, just try to talk. And then, the goal this week is you are much stronger than you think you are. And that goes for everything, just talk it out. If you're afraid, just remember, if he's abusive or something, kick his ass. But if he is and you're afraid, just remember you're much stronger, but yet there's people out there ready to help you. So if you need to talk to a counselor or somebody, reach out and talk before it gets worse. Before you end up like somebody else on that news that got beat or something to death from their wife or husband shot them, or you don't want to be one of those people. You want to get help when you know the signs are there. And the signs are there, whether you're oblivious or not, they're there. It's up to you whether or not you want to act on it and fix the problem. Sometimes the problems can be fixed before it gets worse. And sometimes the problems can be fixed. And then you won't have to worry or just know that there's always people out there. There's people out there that are willing to listen to you and help you if you need it. You're not doing this alone. No matter how alone you think you are, you're never really alone. There's internet, and on the internet, there's people. And in the internet people, there's chat rooms you can go into and talk about all these issues. So, thank you for listening to A Dreamer's Paranormal Journal with me and Jason here. It's already past 10 o'clock and I'm freaking tired. I know he's tired. And we both have work tomorrow. I'll be putting this on later on, after I finish the recording and stuff. And I'll go ahead and put it on YouTube for you guys to listen to it tomorrow morning.
Thank you all very much. We had a great show this evening and look forward to hearing from you again. If you have any feedback, let us know. And remember, you're listening to a Dreamer's Paranormal Journal on Wolfpaw Radio, and we return you back to your normal scheduled programming. Have a good evening.
Thank you, guys.